There is a diplomatic row brewing between Nigeria and the United Kingdom following the rearrest of proscribed IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu. Arise News during the week obtained exclusive video of Kanu during his arraignment, and our investigations revealed that Nigeria is concerned about the circumstances under which Kanu was able to obtain a British passport that enabled him to travel internationally. Meanwhile, Kanu's lawyer, Aloy Ejimako, is requesting that the British government grant the separatist leader every possible consular assistance to which he is entitled as a British citizen. Ejimako also wants the British government to demand that his lawyers and doctors be allowed to have access to him while in detention. Kanu is being detained by Nigeria's secret police on court orders. He is accused by the Nigerian authorities of orchestrating and killing over 100 people, including security officials in the country's southeast region. The IPOB leader holds dual citizenship in Nigeria and the UK. He is known to have been residing in the UK after jumping bail and fleeing Nigeria in 2017 during his trial for treasonable felony. Both his Nigerian and British passports were deposited with the Nigerian court as part of his bail conditions. Questions are now being raised about the role of the British government in the saga and the possibility of being an accessory to Kanu jumping bail. Contacted by a sister publication This Day, officials of the British High Commission in Nigeria provided sketchy details while saying that they are still waiting for more information from their home government. The Kenyan High Commission in Nigeria has in the meantime also dismissed claims that Kanu was arrested in the country. Let's listen to the country's Attorney General.
Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, the self-acclaimed leader of proscribed IPOB, was sometimes back arrested precisely on the 14th day of October 2015 on 11-count charge bordering on terrorism, treasonable felony, managing an unlawful society, publication of defamatory matters, illegal possession of firearms, and improper importation of goods, among others.
Well, to help us analyze the issues surrounding Nnamdi Kanu's diplomatic ties, we have with us in the studio Ambassador Usman Sarki, Nigeria's former Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations and a directing staff of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. We also have with us Chief Wuli Ezugu, who is the Secretary General, Conference of Nigeria Political Parties. And I had to call you Chief today because you're fully dressed like one, and we have to pay obeisance to our traditional leaders. Well, I want to welcome you gentlemen to Arise News. Now let's start with you, Ambassador. It's a trying time for the Nigerian-British relations, and Nigeria is, having lots of challenges with Britain when it comes to this issue of Nnamdi Kanu. And then we've seen a back and forth in exchanges when our sister publication had asked the British authorities on how Nnamdi Kanu was able to get a second passport after his exit from Nigeria when he was a fugitive. I just want you to take us through the procedures of getting a passport as a diplomat when two of your passports have been seized by the court, a Nigerian passport and a British passport, and you leave the country. What's the next step to be done? Should you be offered a consular assistance by a foreign government when your home government has declared you wanted?
Thank you very much, Sumna, for inviting me to this program, and it's a pleasure to join you, Chief.
Thank you.
The Nigerian government is entitled to all intents and purposes to consider the action of the British government as an unfriendly act. It is unfriendly because the British government or its agents and operatives connived with a fugitive who was actually running away from justice, who jumped bail and left the country. And they gave him asylum. They gave him abode, a safe haven, a residence in their country. And they gave him a travel document. How they got to give him those documents, whether in Nigeria or outside, we don't know. But the mere fact that he has a travel document belonging to that country's government ensures or testifies to the connection between him and the government of that country. And for this reason, our government, the Nigerian government, is fully entitled under both our laws and international law to consider this as an unfriendly act, which undermines the credibility, the sovereignty, and the security of this country. In diplomacy, there is a principle called retortion, which is like retaliation. And Nigeria is entitled, when the appropriate moment comes, to retaliate or to retort, this action, which is unfriendly, which is perpetrated by the British government. Having said so, you have asked me the issue of obtaining passports. Passports are usually, these are sovereign instruments, the possession of which testifies to the fact that you have been recognized by the issuing country, that you have met all conditions of being a citizenship or a resident of that country before they give you that document. The considerations that the British had in giving Nnamdi Kanu citizenship and passport beats my imagination. Here is a person who has been declared an unfriendly person, or at least being tried by the court of another country, and yet they went ahead for 4 years to give him comfort in their land. And I think that says a lot about Nigeria-British relationship.
Okay, now
we can address this a bit.
Yes, well, we'll come to you. As we go, in this circumstance, Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers are saying that, look, he's a British citizen, and as such, the British High Commission should offer him consular service, and that he left Nigeria not as a Nigerian, despite the fact that he was born in Nigeria, and as such, this is an unfriendly act by Britain against, an unfriendly act by Nigeria against a British citizen, and his lawyer is asking for consular assistance now after his rearrest. What's your view about that?
Okay, thank you. You see, it baffles me when we try to claim some certain things that are not supposed to. For example, Kanu owns a dual citizenship, Nigeria and British. And a civilized country can never let any of their citizens being trod in the way Kanu is being handled. Whether we like it or not, if in my place, we'd always say that it is only a tree that will hear that you'll be cut off or cut down, he will remain. But if he's a human being, he has to find a way of how to save his life.
So in other words,
with what happened to Kanu, both in his town, his so-called village where he was born, and for him to remain in Nigeria with all those threats, and mind you that because of what happened to him, both in his house, in hometown, this made both parents died out of shock. And if you allow him to remain here, you know what will have happened to him. If busting his house, so many people were killed when they were looking for him. And the next thing he has to do is to find his way to their country, the second country of home, which is Britain. And they accepted their citizen. Kanu did not, because he was being chased out of Nigeria and become a British citizen. This thing must have, either he was born there or brought up there. Something must have happened that he had it. He had been a British citizen before this time of this problem.
Now, let's talk about the role of Britain in that. Do you think that Britain was actually right in giving him a passport or providing some kind of traveling documents when Britain itself knows that he's facing trial in a Nigerian court of law, which has seized 2 of his passports, the Nigerian and then the British passport? Shouldn't the British respect our courts?
Excuse me. The way the incident happened, there's no way he run into British High Commission here that they will not save him. If your house is being bombarded the way they bombarded his house, and that is why he has to find a shelter in the embassy there. And the embassy, being they believe that he's one of them, they have to save his life first. So as far as I'm concerned, what they did was quite very, very correct and right.
All right. Well, the Nigerian military actually invaded Nnamdi Kanu's hometown in Zamfara, and that was what led to his forceful exit. And when he was presented before Justice Binta Nyako, he actually said that if not for that invasion, he would have provided him, he would have presented himself in court. So shouldn't the Nigerian government be blaming itself?
Did they invade your house, your village? Did they invade mine or chips? There are 185 or 200 million people in Nigeria today. Has any of them run to Britain to seek asylum because their house have been bombarded by the Nigerian government? This is a fallacious argument, totally unacceptable. There must be a reason why the law, the state will go after you if you have not committed certain offenses. As a bona fide citizen, law-abiding citizen, the state will not come after you.
Okay, just hold on there. We'll have to go on break. When we come back, you continue that point. Well, it's time for a short break. When we continue, when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week, where we hold the best of conversations and analysis. I'm Somna Sambo, and I still have with me in the studio Ambassador Usman Serki, Nigeria's former Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations. And he is also a Director Staff of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. And of course, we also have with us Willie Ezugo, who is the Secretary General of the Conference of Nigeria's Political Parties. Now, Ambassador, you were making that critical point, actually, on whether it wasn't Nnamdi Kanu's right to actually run away from the country after the military invaded his hometown in Zamfara.
Well, you see, you may have your say, but the state will always have its way. So he may argue that he ran or escaped for his life. But at the same time, there is a concomitant reason or responsibility for the Nigerian state, the Nigerian government, to go after him in order to ensure that justice is upheld, the rule of law is observed, and due process are followed. And remember, he was taken to court. He was not just incarcerated and dumped in a hole and left there. He was brought to court, and in observance of the law, the processes of the law, sureties came forward, or guarantors, or people who stood for him, and they obtained bail.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Senator Yinaya Baribe standing in for him.
And he was supposed to observe the provisions of the bail on which the judge granted those bails. And those sureties, 4 or 6 of them, I don't know, they are liable to produce him on the day of the trial to court. But for 4 years, he absconded, and those people, some of them are scot-free.
Oh, okay,
so
now let's look at...
The rule of law has been observed.
Yes,
and nobody will accuse the Nigerian government of not observing the law.
But let's look at the extraordinary rendition that has happened now. The federal government going outside to extraordinarily carry him, package him. Some people say created him. Some people say abducted him, and all of that. All sort of words being used. In diplomacy, how is this allowed? And do you think that Britain wouldn't be right in its own circumstances to say that based on this extraordinary rendition, as it's said in diplomatic circles, that Britain has a right to protect its citizen?
Well, all is said and done. And when all processes are followed, due processes, legal processes are followed, and the result has not been obtained, there is something under international law called ius imperium, an act of state. The state must defend itself. The state must project its interest. The state must enforce its sovereignty and credibility. And going out to obtain the apprehension of a fugitive is the responsibility of the state, and that was what happened. That is called...
Irrespective of the means.
Irrespective of the means. And today, because of the egregious nature of the threat and the charges made against him, it entailed that he is what, under international law, what is called hostis humani generis. That is an enemy of mankind. The state can declare him hostis humani generis. And under what is called civitas maxima, that is the interest of the global community, you can go after such a person and obtain his detention and extradition by any means that
including interception,
including
just like what the Nigerian government said.
So there is legal foundation or basis for what the government has done.
Okay, now let's come to you, Ezugu. In all of this, some people have said that the Nigerian government was right to have declared Nnamdi Kanu as an enemy of state, because if he wasn't afraid, why was he running away?
Well, like I told you,
since he was standing trial in court, a court of law.
Earlier, mind you, so many courts granted him bail, which the same federal government refused. So many courts granted bail.
But eventually he was granted bail.
Eventually, but what are the first ones? What are the ones that were granted before? Why didn't the government obey their own courts? So based on that, it was just a kind of an easier way. By the time they were able to grant him that bail, and with what happened, like I said earlier, in his home, that was what made him to feel that my life is no longer safe.
And he went outside the country. He was still engaging in those allegedly subversive activities that got him into the courtroom in the first instance. Why didn't he stop with his radio broadcasts, inciting people, as is being alleged by the Nigerian government?
As an agitator, he felt he was free. He felt he can be able to do what he's doing because, mind you, he has followers. Mind you, he had multitude of followers. And mind you, from what is going on in the Southeast today, you can blame him. The Nigerian government can blame him. But those people he represents, look at it and whatever he must have done.
Are you saying you are also not being represented by Nnamdi Kanu? Because I mean, a lot of people think he's representing the interests of the Southeast.
If it is not the marginalization of the Southeast, such a thing wouldn't have happened. If you see what is going on in the Southeast, whether you like, even if it is ordinary fly that want to represent them, they will follow the person. Because if you see the way the Southeast is being treated up to this moment, I'm telling you. For example, I'm now telling you there are 2 villages in Enugu State. You must have heard the news. Whereby, just because the people went to the bush and drove away the herdsmen who are eating up their crops, and the full combatant of soldiers and army were sent to that village, burning houses. If you are from that village, would you run away?
Okay,
so
now,
if you see this kind of a situation, there's no way you can remain. There's no way you will be given a British space by giving him that bail after refusing a lot of bail, that you, if you are a Kanu, you have alternative that you will use it.
Oh,
and
okay.
that alternative was
very quickly, Nnamdi Kanu's family is accusing Kenya of giving up Nnamdi Kanu to the Nigerian authorities. Kenya has denied. Where do we go from there?
As it is, we don't know which is which. We don't know the country.
There are also calls that it was in Addis Ababa he was intercepted.
So many countries, even Brazil. And you should know the kind of information we normally get in this country, where lies is being thrown off, even by the government. And when I mean lies, you can imagine if the information minister will come here, will tell you a different thing.
Oh, okay, very interesting. Let me come to you as we try to round off this conversation now. How should this trial be treated? And how should Nnamdi Kanu be treated so that we don't have another Muhammad Yusuf on our hands, like it happened with the Boko Haram leader in 2009 when he was arrested by the military, handed over to the police, only for us to hear that he died in custody?
Well, incidentally, I'm from Maiduguri. I'm from Borno State, where Boko Haram started. I can never, for the life of me, come to this program to defend Boko Haram, to defend Muhammad Yusuf Osheko, as Chief is doing, defending IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu, or justifying what he has done. These people are criminals. I cannot come and defend any of them here. At the same time, as Nigerians, when we discuss these national issues with global implications, we must dissociate ourselves from tribal, ethnic, religious, regional sentiments and discuss them on the basis of objective reality, of the national interest. It's on this basis that we should approach. But if we reduce ourselves to the notion of marginalization, underhand activities, maltreatment, we will not go anywhere. There will be no objective discussion. There will be no logical end to it. In terms of his treatment and trial, if the Nigerian government wants to harm him, our security forces would not have brought him back to the country alive and well. They could have disposed of him somewhere and nobody will be wiser. And that's the end of the matter. But because the president has sworn to uphold the rule of law and the Constitution, and his government reflects that stand since he came to office, that is why the extradition of this man back to Nigeria took place. And that is why we can see him hale and hearty on television, appearing, going to court and coming out. So Nigerians should have confidence in the government and let the government handle this issue at its discretion. without any pressure or interference from either internal forces or interests or external interests.
Yes, particularly that of Britain right now.
Yes.
But just in 30 seconds now, what does this say about the issue of dual nationality? Should Nigeria jettison that?
Well, not necessarily jettison it, but we should re-examine which countries we should have this arrangement with. It's our discretion to recognize the dual nationality arrangement with other countries. So it is our turn to now sit down, look at the actions of Britain to see whether we should do that. But let us not forget there are thousands and thousands of good Nigerian citizens who hold dual nationality, British and Nigerian.
Okay.
We should not punish them because of this incident.
Very interesting position there, Ambassador. And we'll just have to go on a short break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussions based on other stories available to us. Stay with us. Welcome back. Nigeria's oil industry is set for a new deal of reforms as the long-awaited Petroleum Industry Bill has been passed in both the Senate and House of Representatives again, but with slight adjustments this time around in the percentage of funds for host communities. The bill did not scale through without drama by South-South senators who wanted more shares for their host communities. The bill privatizes Nigeria's oil company, the NNPC, and sets out changes and the guiding framework to support oil and gas reforms in the country. It includes sections on governance, new industry entities, fiscal terms, and host communities. While senators passed a 3% funding for the host communities, saying that such funding was fair enough for them, the House of Representatives, however, approved 5% funding. A process of reconciling the difference is ongoing through a harmonization committee, and analysts believe that a presidential assent will be achieved this time around due to the huge input of the executive in the bill.
Had been taken and the bill is passed. We promise Nigerians that we will do our best to pass the petroleum industry bill that have then so far at that time defied passage or defied assent. At least the demons have been defeated in this chamber. I want to assure the petroleum industry in Nigeria that what we have passed is a very good balance of giving them the kind of clement environment for them to not only stay here, but even bring more foreign investors into the oil and gas industry in Nigeria.
Well, to help us analyze this new development, we are still with Ambassador Usman Serki, Nigeria's former Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, and he's also Directing Staff of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. And we have Willie Ezugo, the Secretary General, Conference of Nigeria's Political Parties. Well, interesting development here, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Willie Ezugo. It's an interesting thing that for so many years we have been looking for ways of passing this bill. This is the second time it's been passed, but the euphoria this time around is that due to the huge executive inputs by the presidency that it will be signed into law. But we saw that drama playing out where the host communities wanted 10%. The federal government said they are willing to give 2.5%. But the Senate gave 3%, and then the House of Representatives gave 5%. Now we are awaiting the consensus that will be built between the House and Senate to see if we can get something higher than the 3%, or maybe the 5% will be retained. What's your view generally?
Well, my view in the PIB, it has taken a long time. We have been waiting for it. And if by the time as what is going on now, the Senate have been able to come up with the percentage of what they are giving the host communities, if it is being passed, it is automatically a kind of something people like us will not want it to be. Because you cannot tell me that those people where this particular oil is coming from will take only 3% with all the things that are going through. Because the necessary thing, the fairest thing to do is that particular 10%, which even the former one, the president refused to sign, is what they're asking for. But this time around, it's like, I'm asking for 10%. You are saying it's 2.5%. The Senate will now come up 3%. then the House is looking at 5%. We know quite all right the ruling party is the majority in the House, both the upper and lower chambers. And whatever they say become a law. If we should pass this particular 3%, and mind is not only passing the 3%, what they are trying to do again is that all where there's any oil pipeline that passes through will get involved in any state that does not even produce oil. So you will find out that it is like a kind of, you know, a cheat to those oil producing.
Well, I must add here that the lawmaker said that they had been briefed by the GMD of the NNPC, who had told them that, look, 3% is fair enough if that's what they want to give. That's the Senate. And then they also said that they were briefed by the Minister of State for Petroleum, who insisted that 2.5% is good. And they eventually said that the reason why they are saying this is because there's the 13% derivation fund, which goes to the states. Then there's also the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, and then there's also the NDDC, and all these funds go to those areas. But this particular funds, the 3%, which is about $502 million that will be accruing to the entire host communities, will be going directly to the host communities, not to the states or to the local governments. So they think that when you juxtapose it with this,
are you aware that
fair.
all the states, the pipeline, oil pipeline are passing, are involved in it?
Well, it's a new development. And
are you aware? So what concerns them? So it's no longer the host countries, I mean the host states or the host communities we are talking about. Those ones will come in.
What I'm saying is that, do you think that that's what the NNPC GMD has said is fair enough that, look, we're already giving you 13% derivation, there's the Ministry of Niger Delta, and then the NDDC.
Even where the Minister of State, who is from that area, is talking of 2.5%. How do you look at it?
Well,
he's involved in the
he's a son of the soil.
A son of soil is now saying that it's 2.5%, whereas the MD NNPC is saying that 3% is okay, whereas the House of Rep is saying 5%, whereas the host community are asking for 10%. I think what they would have done, even if no matter whatever, they should come in the 50-50 basis.
Okay, well, let's listen to what the ambassador has to say. The potentials of the PIB actually opening up Nigeria's oil industry. A lot of these multinational oil companies have been saying that Nigeria's oil and gas laws are crude. Let me use that. The last one we had was in the, I think, 1967, and then into the 70s, and since then it's been very difficult. How much of international investment and credibility will you think that the Nigerian oil and gas sector will be after this PIB to attract investors for the much needed investment in that sector?
Well, this is a very interesting discussion. But remember last month, I think was it this month or last month, Mr. President launched the Train 7 of the NLNG, costing about $10 billion, dollars. That means even before the PIB bill was passed, substantial investment was coming into the economy, into the country. So confidence is there in terms of involvement of multinationals and foreign investors. However, this new mechanism, this new law that has been passed after 12 or 13 years of negotiation will give further credence to the idea that Nigeria should be a destination of choice for investors in the oil and gas. Deregulation is something aimed at creating efficiency, dynamism and momentum in the sector, and freeing up the forces of production that will lend their weight to the improvement of the production. One issue in Nigerian oil and gas is that we produce per barrel, I think we spend about $30 to produce 1 barrel of oil, according to some estimates. While in some countries, they spend about $14 or even 12 or 10. So the PIB bill should bring down the cost of production. That is number one. Secondly, the PIB bill should enable the authorities to effectively supervise, monitor, and exercise control over the operations of the oil industry. There have been loose control over the years, leading to oil theft, vandalization, piracy, and all these things. These were the critical factors that made Nigeria not attractive in the overall upstream and downstream sector. So effective monitoring, security, and less involvement by agencies in terms of perceived extortion and some criminal acts.
Okay, one interesting aspect of this PIB is that the NNPC has now been broken down.
Yeah.
Before, the NNPC was a regulator and operator at the same time. And we've always said that there's been lots of corruption in NNPC. That's the impression a lot of Nigerians have. And that a lot of things are murky, though NNPC has been trying to become transparent in recent times. What do you think this will do to the multinational oil company?
Well, it will actually facilitate engagement between the government or the remnant of NNPC and other departments like DPR, who actually control the oil resource in the country, the oil wells and the assets, and other participants in the industry. So the idea of efficiency, that was what I was actually, and transparency, that should be the aim of the PIB bill. Where there is no transparency and there is no oversight and proper checks and balances and control, even the revenue coming to your country, you will not be able to ascertain it. Up till this time, we don't know how much oil is being actually lifted every day.
Lifted in the country,
and
which
how
has
much
been a
is
very
coming
big
to
challenge,
the country.
actually.
Customs is involved, NNPC, Minister of Petroleum, the Navy, various agencies are involved, but we don't have an actual figure of how much is being lifted every day. I hope this will be one of the mechanisms to really make it more transparent.
Now, I actually have your views on that, to NNPC being privatized. How much transparency are we expecting? And as NNPC will begin operation as a private company, who are those that are going to be the shareholders? Should the Nigerian government open it up to all Nigerians to buy shares in the company?
Well, just like Your Excellency said, if there's efficiency in it and the percentage of what we're talking of in the IPOB is being accepted in every quarter, what I mean by the government and the host communities, I think there will be much transparency in terms of, and that is why Nigerians have been asking for that particular bill to be passed. But not when you are passing it and you are passing it fraudulently. If not,
we cannot say fraudulently, because lawmakers from all parts of the country were there.
I'm coming. He has so much analyzed it, and I quite agree with him. Up to today, you don't know how much oil that Nigeria has been exported. Talk less of the one you have. You can see on daily basis, I read where the GMD of NNPC is now saying that fuel is going to be sold for 200-something naira, and you don't remember, you don't think, you people have forgotten that unemployment in this country is the majority of the population of this country. Where are we going? If even at 160-something we are buying fuel today, you see what is going on.
Well, if NNPC is going to become a private company,
that's why I say that
then
if in terms
it should operate as a private company.
If it comes into that manner, that means the efficiency, like Your Excellency said, is what we needed. It will be able to throw down a whole lot of waste.
Gentlemen, as we try to round off this conversation,
I hope it will not be like the power sector.
like the power sector reform.
Of course, thank you.
Power.
Yes, and the government is still paying subsidy on electricity and all of that.
And we are paying actually very high cost, of this, bills for electricity.
Okay, very interesting points you have there. But should President Muhammadu Buhari sign this PIB? At least if not for anything, for the fact that it will help restructure certain things. And if there are any other issues, maybe it should be brought further for amendment.
Well, he should sign it, but subject to one thing, that what is the deal for the Nigerian people in it? The workers, the market women and market people in the localities, because this is a national asset. Nobody put oil there, nobody. Nobody will say they had a hand in putting oil, petroleum underground or under the seas in Nigeria. So with the sovereignty of Nigeria, we exercise sovereignty over the oil asset. For this reason, every Nigerian should have a say, should have a part, a share in this new arrangement.
Yes.
You cannot just privatize it completely and deny Nigerian service.
Okay, very quickly, should President Muhammadu Buhari sign the bill?
Like I said earlier, if in terms of the percentage you're talking about, it's been acceptable from the host communities and rest of them, You have no reason not to sign the bill.
Oh, okay. Well, we all hope that a win-win situation will be found between the Senate and the House of Representatives through the Harmonization Committee. Well, we just have to go on another break, and when we come back, we'll continue with some of the big stories during the week, including the defection of Governor Bello Matawalle in Zamfara State to the governing All Progressives Congress. Stay with us. Welcome back. One of the biggest stories in the outgoing week is the defection of the Zamfara State Governor Bello Matawalle to the ruling All Progressives Congress. He jumped ship from the People's Democratic Party in an elaborate ceremony in Gusau, the capital. The event was attended by many state governors elected under the platform of the APC and other members of the party. But aggrieved APC leaders in Zamfara State, like Senator Kabiru Marafa, refused to take part in the defection rally. Marafa, in an exclusive interview with Arise News, rejected the declaration of Governor Matawalle as APC leader in the state by the APC Interim National Chairman, Malabuni. Governor Matawalle is the third to have defected from the PDP in the last few months. Let's listen to Marafa.
APC needs to be a little more careful and more circumspect in respect of the trouble in Zamfara. The people of Zamfara are aggrieved, and justifiably so. And now coming to rub salt on injury, I think it amounts to asking for too much. We nurtured this party from inception to date. We had a rift, internal crisis in APC for almost 2 years that cost us all our positions and everything.
Well, to help us analyze this, we are still with Ambassador Usman Sarki, Nigeria's former Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations and the Directing Staff of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. We also have Willie Ezugu, the Secretary General Conference of Nigerian Political Parties, and I would like to start with you, since you are the politician in the midst. Now, when you have a defection happening like this, and then party elders not agreeing to unite behind the governor for him to be the party leader, what happens? Can there be a governor in a state and he's not the leader of the party that he has defected to?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the Conference of Nigerian Political Parties have issued a statement before on the defection. And they should make it a law whereby if you have been able to have a party mandate, if you want to leave the party, then leave whatever that took you there. Because it is because of the party that you are being voted for.
Especially in this instance when the Supreme Court said it's the PDP.
Especially in this instance. For example, Matawalle is my friend, but unfortunately what he did is not quite correct. In as much as in Nigeria anything can happen, right? Because we know how they battled that particular state, how he came into being a governor on a platter of gold. As God may have it, then why do you disappoint the God that made you to be governor there? Secondly, in fact, I've said that we don't practice democracy in Nigeria. I've said it time without number. The definition of the democracy is government for the people by the people. What to practice in Nigeria is not even satanic democracy.
What does that mean?
What it means is the way we practice democracy in Nigeria. Do or die. Affair of, where you see election become a war, where you see people, no matter whatever, is by who is there in the INEC.
All right.
Excuse me. And I now said again, those who are clamoring or who are with him, I mean, you don't blame who was the leader of the party, who said they nurtured the party up to this extent. Who was the leader? It's just like the seat, you are the head of the place, and all of a sudden somebody from nowhere.
Yes, that's why I was insistent. Should he be the leader? Because the governor is coming in with resources that the party may lack.
That is because it's Nigeria where they think of governor having resources. Where is the resources?
And that's why they cut them in the first instance. Okay, well, let's just have your own view. The People's Democratic Party, the largest minority party in the country, is losing governors, losing party members to the All Progressives Congress. Are we not heading to a one-party state? Are you afraid as an intellectual?
Well, not necessarily. There is dynamics of politics involved here. If the shoes were reversed and the PDP was in power, I think it will say no, they are not going towards a one-party state.
And we actually saw that happening while they were in power too.
So the idea, I think the problem lies in the way the Constitution only says that a political party should be the platform on which you will contest and be voted for. So if you are not a member of a political party, you cannot stand for election.
No independent candidacy.
No independent candidacy. I think we should look at that particular law and see how we can make it better, more in conformity with Nigeria's temperament. And secondly, the reform of our electoral law. I think INEC should step in this matter to gather all the political parties and come to a modus vivendi in terms of how the idea of defection should be handled. The National Institute, that is NIPS, has held a number of conferences here in Abuja for the sake of political parties to discuss this issue so that the parties can project their concerns and proffer solutions. So I think it's something that the media should take up dispassionately and objectively.
Okay, very interesting. We just have to move on to the last story. South Africa's ex-leader, Jacob Zuma, has asked the country's top court to annul his 15-month jail sentence for failing to appear at a corruption inquiry, saying it is excessive and unjust. Zuma called the sentence a political statement of exemplary punishment. He has maintained his stance as a victim of a political witch hunt. He has been given 5 days to appear before police officials. However, it is unclear if he will go willingly. His supporters have gathered in his hometown of Nkandla to resist his arrest. Since being ousted by his successor, Cyril Ramaphosa, in 2018, Zuma has faced several legal maneuvers aimed at bringing him to justice on allegations of grand corruption during and before his time as president. And I'll come back to you, Ambassador. A lot of people are looking out to see if Jacob Zuma will actually find his way into that jail, but he's appealing. Do you think that the courts will give him some regards as a former president and not allow that to happen?
Yes. Well, let us remember that the 15 months jail sentence is for defiance of court order. That's not appearing. He has not been tried, and he has actually, a final verdict has not been passed. There are two processes. One, the corruption, allegations of corruption, that is the state capture trial. And then the lawyers, the prosecution lawyers, appeal to the Constitutional Court to say that he was obstructing justice by not appearing. And the Constitutional Court deemed it necessary to make this judgment by way of ensuring that nobody should be in contempt of the law.
Yeah, and even if you're a former president.
Former president, yes.
Okay.
So I think the important thing is to have a balance between the regard for the office of the president, even if he's a former president, and the enormity, of the charges against him.
Very interesting. We just have to go in less than 60 seconds that we have. I just want you to talk about his supporters refusing to allow the former president to actually be carried to jail. What will you say about that?
Well, it's normal. This is what normally happens in African countries. Because if it's you can see most of the advanced countries, the moment you are being accused, you must answer it, no matter who you are.
And if you're jailed,
you must go to jail. But here, even if they bring you out of prison for having stolen so much, you will find you are coming to go to the court to make music for you to come home.
I'm afraid we do not have enough time
left. It's very unfortunate.
We do not have enough time left. But I must thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador Usman Serki, who is Nigeria's former Deputy Permanent Representative at the United Nations and the Directing Staff of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. Thank you for coming. We also thank Willie Ezugu, who is the Chief, and then Secretary General of the Conference of Nigerian Political Parties. We must thank you for coming to this show. Well, that's how it's been for this edition of This Week, a very interesting one for that matter. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Somna Sambo.